Welcome to the Muckle Tune of the Langham. Muckle in Scots means big or large. Back in the 1800s, when Langham had a population of over 4,000, the textile mills in the town boasted they had more looms than any other border town, hence the title Muckle Tune. Today, our population is around 2,400, but we maintain a very strong community spirit. Pre-COVID, we supported over 70 interest groups within the town and 2 prize-winning bands, a pipe band and a silver band, both with healthy youth sections. We are nestled amongst the hills of Eskdale, on the eastern boundary of Dumfries and Galloway in the south of Scotland. This is a very active community. Most of the services in the town are community run, from playgroup to the community day centre for older people, to the Buccleuch Centre, our music and arts venue, even the local paper, the Eskdale and Liddesdale Advertiser. Langham Initiative was founded over 25 years ago and is one of the south of Scotland's longest surviving community trusts. It was set up to try and counter the decline of the traditional textile industry, for which our town had long been famous. From the start, it has been aimed at community regeneration. Community ownership of land offered a chance to start regenerating, rebuilding, and restructuring based on a nature-based economy on the land that surrounds Langham. So, how did we achieve the south of Scotland's largest community buyout? It all started when Buccleuch Estates, the hereditary owners of Langham Moor, unexpectedly announced it was for sale. It took the town by surprise. It came as a total shock to the community. Langham Initiative had never considered land ownership before.
Margaret, could I just stop you for a minute? People are getting some sound problem because maybe you're moving your paper. Sorry, I'm just...
Okay. Where do you want me to go back at all? Anyone? Have you missed something that's essential? And I will repeat. No?
Just carry on, Margaret.
Right. Langham Initiative had never considered land ownership before this time, even though it had a long history of delivering award-winning environmental engagement projects. It was the prospect of the community's connection with the land being severed or altered, with absolutely no say in its future if it was sold on, that prompted us into action. We immediately started an extensive community engagement exercise to assess what support there was for a buyout. It consisted of door knocking, petitions, workshops and consultations. The support from the community was overwhelming, and thus began our journey to achieving our impossible dream. Our community decided to take on the seemingly impossible challenge of raising £6.4 million to buy 10,500 acres of Langham Moor and the Tarras Valley estate. Langham Initiative led the campaign along with a small army of volunteers. Negotiations began with Buccleuch Estates, and we started making a business plan to show how we could make this economically viable. We led a huge public campaign and crowdfunder. Support snowballed with global interest, and donations poured in from environmental trusts and private individuals, people from throughout the UK and worldwide. We were once again overwhelmed by the outpouring of support we received, including from many of you in this virtual room tonight. Without you, we could never have made this happen. With so much momentum from all over the globe, who believed in our impossible dream, we raised the 3.8 million in 6 months to buy half the land, 5,200 acres. We nearly didn't make it. We were fundraising right up to the final 24 hours when the Woodland Trust stepped forward and got us over the line. The first 5,200 acres came into community ownership legally in March 2021. It was a historic landmark achievement for our community. We are so excited about the opportunity this offers to shape our own future and to show that communities can truly make a difference. But we're not finished yet. It was agreed that the second half of the Tarras Valley estate, 5,300 acres, would be held off the open market until May 2022 to allow us time to raise the additional 2.2 million and also to bring this land into community ownership. This second phase buyout will double the size of the Tarras Valley Nature Reserve. More of this later. And now I'll hand over to Kevin.
Good evening, everyone. And yeah, thank you very much for everyone joining. So I'm just going to pick up where Margaret left off there and talk about why does land ownership matter? And especially when, in Scotland, for example, we have open access rights and we have right to roam, but community land ownership is a lot more than accessing land. And as it says on the slide there, it's about empowering people. It's about having a say in what your future is going to be. And in Langham, that's something that hasn't always happened. The town itself has been at the behest of the mills before, and then by the larger landowners up until this point. So yeah, it's about the community being empowered. It's about making decisions to have a sustainable future for our children and for generations to come. It's about creating a legacy for the future as well. And one of the really heartening things about the process Margaret just talked about was that when we spoke to the community, the things that came out on top were having better use of the natural assets on our doorstep, but it was also about protecting those assets. It was about the importance of the wildlife in the area. It was the importance of climate change. It was what mattered to the younger people in our community, as well as those that have spent their entire lives here. So I think that when we talk about why does it matters on every level. It matters on social, cultural, environmental and economic levels to communities. And we see the issues that Margaret talked about there across rural communities in Scotland. But what we have here is, we've been talking a lot about the climate emergency. Recently, we've heard about it at COP26 a lot. And what we wanted to do here was provide a vision of hope. We wanted to provide a new chapter in Langham where, although land ownership isn't the silver bullet to the town's regeneration, it can be a key part of it. It can be a catalyst to help bring other investment into the town. And what we want to see is that that's done with the environment at its heart. And I think that's a really important message, and it's one of the messages that inspired people, that this was about hope, it was about the future, and it was that we're not bound by the situation we find ourselves in, and that we can make a difference ourselves. And what we have now is a little short bit of drone footage, and the storms over the weekend have played a little bit of havoc in Langham, so our internet connections aren't great down here. So we have this little bit of footage. It was a little bit janky when we were trying to play it before, but one of the really lovely things about having this footage is that there's a local piper called Ian Bell, and he's composed a new pipe tune called the Back of Tarras, It's Ur Muir Nu. And that's the music that you're going to hear playing over the top as well. So that's just a lovely cultural connection to the land here. I'll just let Kat start to share the slideshow again there. So just before I hand on to the team to take you through where they're going to be going next, we thought it'd be useful to give a quick summary of what that 5,200 acres consisted of, because a key part of this project was the environmental ambitions of it and the community's climate ambitions, but it's also about economic regeneration with the environment at its heart. And what we tried to do was put together a community-owned estate that had a number of different assets and income streams attached to it to make it sustainable long term, and try and provide a model for how that could look. So what does Tarras Valley Nature Reserve consist of? Well, it's got areas of moorland and upland habitat, where much of it, but not all of it, is designated as a site of special scientific interest or a special protection area, or I should say, and a special protection area. And that SPA is for breeding hen harriers, and this is a really wonderful site for being able to see hen harriers up close, and it's one of the real things that people locally love seeing. But there are also remnants of ancient woodlands along the river, along the Tarras Valley itself, and we're starting to see that regenerate and come up over the slopes and onto the uplands as well, and that's something we're keen to see continue. And what we want to show here is a real dynamic mosaic of habitats that provide great biodiversity that people will want to come and see and want to come and experience. We also have some small areas of commercial forestry, and part of that was to show that we can have different types of land use, but it can be done in balance. So that provides us with a little bit of an income stream here as well. There were 6 residential properties as part of the purchase, and 4 of them are currently tenanted. And for those people, it wasn't just the fact that that's an income stream for us. That was local people living in those homes that have now been safeguarded as part of it. And the 2 empty properties offer great potential for regeneration and repurpose, and looking at future income streams as well. There was some land closer to Langham, where locally we have some issues with the floodplain and how we can develop it, and some of that land could be used for sustainable development going forward. But one of the key things about this whole project is that we can address community needs and identified community needs and provide community benefit. And one of the real key things about this as well was the cultural connection to the land here. And an area on the new Tarras Valley Nature Reserve known as the Common Moss is a key part of the annual common riding. And for well over 250 years now, the community has marked the boundaries of that common land. And for a time there has been ambiguity over that ownership. And what we can say through the community purchase now is that ambiguity has ended, and that land is completely in community ownership. And that's such a powerful symbol locally. It's something that was a real driver behind this as well, about that cultural connection that we have to the land around us. I think it's important, just before I hand over, to mention the people on this webinar who donated and helped, and people from around the world, and it was mentioned by Margaret, the Woodland Trust, but I think it's important to mention that there were other major donors that made this possible as well: the Scottish Land Fund, South of Scotland Enterprise, Garfield Weston Foundation, the Carmen Foundation, and the Bentley Family Foundation. And the first large donation that we got was also from the John Muir Trust. So I think it's important to also mention that they were a key part in this as well. But I'm really excited now to hand over to Jenny, who's the new estate manager here, and to hear what the team is going to bring to you now. So I will now be quiet.
Thanks, Kevin, and hello, everybody. So I'm just going to start on, what does it mean now that the land's in community ownership? So I think that the first thing to say is that, now the land, when the land officially transferred over to the community in March this year, one of the really big priorities was recruiting a team of staff to bring that additional resource in, to take forward the development of the reserve alongside the community. So we're really starting as we mean to go on and making sure that our ambitions are realised. So we've now got a team of 6 staff. So that includes includes me, estate manager, Angela, development manager, Kat, who's our inspiring engagement with nature project officer, and who are obviously on the call tonight. And then we also have Joyce, Jane from the Woodland Trust, and Stuart, who are pictured here on this slide. So, we're already creating jobs and opportunities just months into legal ownership, which is really amazing. So, alongside the staff recruitment, one of the big things that we've been doing is the team have been really busy running an extensive ongoing engagement programme with the community participation programme to ensure that emerging plans are co-designed and collaborative, and following on from what Kevin said, that actually what we do next reflects the needs and aspirations of the community. So it goes without saying that people are at the heart of what we're doing, and building that connection and continued ownership is really important to what we do next. So, and also, as well as that, partnerships and collaborations are going to be absolutely essential to how we deliver. Sharing learnings with other communities and organisations is also going to be really important for us going forward. And so I think it is pretty fair to say that we're all learning, and this is new for all of us as we embark on this journey of community land ownership. And how we become sustainable custodians of this land for generations to come. And I don't think there's an exact right way to do this, but a core part of what we're doing, and we'll cover this in a little bit more detail, is that we're following a really transparent, participative approach where we'll encourage ongoing discussion, open discussion and involvement throughout everything we do. So what are we trying to achieve? Would it be okay to go to the next? Oh, there we go. Sorry, there's a bit of a delay. So what are we trying to achieve? So we've got 4 pillars that are kind of underpinning what we're trying to achieve under community ownership through the Tarras Valley Nature Reserve. So this is what we've committed to do with our buyout, and this is what we'll be working towards under community ownership. So these almost provide like this sort of skeleton structure starting point as we plan for what comes next. And the detail of how we do this is still very much yet to be determined through co-design, research, survey. So we really are at the start of the journey. But so just a bit more about these pillars in so number 1 is nature. So a key aim for nature is large-scale ecosystem restoration. So restoring degraded and lost habitat across our reserve, and working at landscape scale to create interconnected networks of rich habitat where our wildlife can really expand and flourish. So number 2 is climate. So owning land does come with power, and it comes with responsibility. And for us, that means power to make a really meaningful and verifiable contribution to climate change, but also to contribute to locally and for a benefit of the local community, but also contributing to that national climate change emergency response. And we do feel like we're part of helping to create a fairer and brighter future. And we're really serious about climate change. We want to be a flagship initiative for Scotland in showing how communities can make that real difference, and to the national effort to help reach net zero and restore our natural world. And number 3, sustainability. So I'm kind of going through these separately. Obviously, how we're delivering it on the ground is very integrated, but for the purposes of today, we've kind of separated them out a little bit. But so sustainability. So our 3rd aim is that what we do on the reserve, and Kevin touched upon it earlier, is that we're supporting all 3 pillars of sustainability. So the social, economic, environmental. What we've got is a huge asset to help catalyse that regeneration through a nature-based approach after years of economic heartache in Langham. So we're really excited about the opportunities that sustainable approach can provide. And last but not least, very not least, is people. So people are absolutely at the heart of what we're doing. Without the power of people, we wouldn't be here today with such a big ambition for the future. And strengthening that human connection to land and nature is a central core element to what we're doing. So I'll cover a bit on nature and climate next. So a bit more on the kind of like the detail that underpins the nature and climate elements. So some of our key aims under this theme are going to be that we achieve national nature reserve status and work within the existing designations that we've got on the land, such as SSSI and SPA for hen harriers. You know, an essential part of what we're doing is encouraging a rich and dynamic habitat of habitat mosaic through our management, that we're following a nature-led approach, low intervention, but with a helping human hand to help to kickstart all of those natural processes through the land, for things like developing an appropriate mix of grazing animals to help trigger that dynamism of nature to kickstart regeneration of habitats. So I think in the video we've already seen that we've got regenerating native forest coming from our native trees in the Tarras Valley, and they're already given the chance, they're already sort of regenerating up the hillside. So it is just amazing to see what can happen when we give nature a chance. And again, I mentioned earlier, a really important part of what we're doing is creating a verifiable contribution to nature-based carbon capture through woodland and peatland restoration. So in action, what does all that mean? So what are we actually doing? So some of the highlights that we're working on at the moment are, so we're over the coming months, we're going to be co-designing a management plan for the reserve. So co-created with community and partners to set out how we'll do things. So everything from how do we actually, you know, how do we actually deliver large-scale ecosystem restoration to right across to how do we actually support sustainable, responsible ecotourism. And this includes things like starting to baseline and monitor our impact. So we've already started to look at really innovative ways and methods that we can capture how the land changes as nature restores. So that's through our new creative digital media project, which Stuart in the team, who can't be here tonight, who will be taking that forward. We mentioned the Woodland Trust earlier, so we've got a fantastic partnership with the Woodland Trust to support our woodland creation and regeneration on the reserve. So we're already planning a large area of broadleaf woodland creation, and we're busy looking at plans for a community-owned tree nursery to help grow native seed from our ancient forests to really help kickstart further regeneration. We've also got our peatlands, which again, a major carbon store when they're in a good state. So we've got large areas of drained peatland and moorland. So we're busy scoping restoration opportunities for those areas. So ditch blocking, re-wetting and restoration across the reserve through a mix of contracting and volunteer action. So for example, we're looking at the Peatland Action Fund at the moment. And just finally, before I hand over to Angela, we're also taking part in the Civ Tech Challenge. So this is, we're acting as a pilot site for that. So it's a challenge through the Scottish Government to working with multiple partners. And this is focused on working with tech companies to develop innovative technological solutions to help land managers. So not just us, but, you know, across the country to make informed decisions about, or better informed decisions about nature-based carbon capture and storage on their land. So it isn't just about us looking inward, but it's also how can we share our assets to help solve a much bigger challenge as we try and look at how we can restore our land in the face of the climate emergency. So for now, that's it from me, and I will hand over to Angela, our development manager, to cover sustainability.
Hello and welcome to everybody. So I'm Angela Williams, and I'm the development manager with Tarras Valley Nature Reserve. And I just want to talk a little bit about sustainability. And that sustainability, as Jenny's already said, in all its forms, financially, socially and environmentally. It's really important to us, both as a team, but at a board level and a community level, that the Tarras Valley Nature Reserve uses its natural and built assets to ensure that we are sustainable in the long term. There's an awful lot of opportunity there, new economic, new employment opportunities. And while we've got to make sure that the reserve itself works financially and can support the ongoing running costs, be that for staff or all the costs associated with the buildings, we also want to ensure that the town itself benefits, so that as the community feels so strongly about the moor and the land, it's really crucial that they feel the benefits down in the town as well. So we've got a huge amount of natural assets. Kat, do you want to go on? Thanks. We've got, as we already heard about, we've got the wildlife, we've got the land, we've got the buildings, we've got some absolutely fantastic views. We've got a huge amount of natural resources. And somehow we have to make sure that we can make these work for us while still achieving our wider aims and objectives. So I'm just going to run through a quick snapshot of projects. Thanks, Kat. Because what does this actually mean in action? As has already been highlighted, we own 6 properties on the land that we've purchased. 4 are tenanted, and it's really important that people are living and working on the land. And from our point of view, those are people's homes and they will be there as long as they want to stay there. But it does give us 2 other properties that we've got the opportunity to look at creatively. It may be that they end up as residential accommodation, but we can also look at creating volunteer accommodation and a base for volunteer activities and paid experiences. Could be for a field study centre, could be for holiday accommodation. There could be a number of opportunities there that we are currently considering and looking at the options and weighing up the pros and cons of each of them to make sure that they do fit in with the bigger picture. But we also very much want to use the land to engage people and encourage them to come and visit. So developing a tourist economy and contributing to tourism in Langham is important. And we've got a huge amount to sort of tap into wildlife and ecotourism. So that could be where people stay, for example, glamping or wild camping. Could be the development of a dark sky observatory, wildlife observatory. We can run training courses. There's a whole host of different directions that we can start to explore and put the stepping stones in place to make sure that we can implement them safely. We are going to look at renewable energy. We have had studies done. There's an awful lot of issues around that, but there is the potential for using solar to actually provide an income and provide clean power for local projects. And we also want to use the land for employment, to create training opportunities, maybe develop apprenticeships, and offering much wider land-based skills. People have worked on the land for many, many years, and we want them to continue to do so, but hopefully we can actually offer more opportunities that really help us meet the climate challenge ahead of us as well. So there's still an awful lot of work to be done there, and this is just a sample of the many ideas that we are considering and evaluating at the moment. So no decisions have been taken on many of these issues, but we are working on them so that we can put them into place over the next 2 or 3 years. And for now, I'll hand over to Kat and she'll explain how we're putting people at the heart of our plans.
Thanks, Angela. So, hi, I'm Kat. I'm the Inspiring Engagement in Nature Project Officer. So, in terms of the work we'll be doing on the people and community side of things, we want so the first point in this slide links back to the previous slides about sustainability and the development on the reserve. So by improving the access and facilities on the site, more people will be able to visit and enjoy the beautiful area. We'll also be providing opportunities to connect with and learn about the land and the nature that make up the reserve. So this will be done through wildlife-related sessions run for school groups and public events, and might include a range of activities such as moth trapping, bird watches, guided walks. And by increasing the opportunity for members of the public to visit and engage with the land and nature, we hope that we'll be able that they will be able to, we hope to be able to help develop an enhanced sense of ownership over the community land. Being able to participate in volunteering sessions, for example, on the reserve will also hopefully lead to an increase in connection and sense of personal responsibility. So over the last few months, we've been quite busy. As previously mentioned, we've been at many community events, such as the Love Langham Market and the Langham Chili Festival. And we've also been working with other members of the local community. So since the beginning of September, we've been running school sessions with every class at the 2 local primary schools, as well as presenting in assemblies at the Langham Academy. So we've engaged with over 400 students in total across the 3 different schools. And our brilliant volunteers have put in many hours over the last couple of months. So they've been helping at things like our community events and attending practical conservation sessions, such as removing old tree guards which had been left on an area of woodland which was planted many years ago. And so far, we've hired 5 local contractors to undertake jobs on the reserve, such as track repair and building maintenance, and we'll continue to support the local economy in this way. So our volunteering programme, which, so in the Inspiring Engagements in Nature project, we've got the volunteers, we've got the schools and education programme, and then a few other projects underneath it. So our volunteering programme will be ongoing to assist with the maintenance of the reserve and the habitats within it. Practical volunteering sessions have already started, undertaking tasks such as the removal of invasive Sitka spruce trees on the moorland, which this weekend we will be selling at the local market as Christmas trees for use by the local community. So the schools project has already been going for the last couple of months, running sessions with a range of environmental and outdoor education activities such as mini beast hunts, wildlife surveys and den building. And going forward, we'll be expanding the range of activities available and hope to be able to work with schools both locally and in the wider areas. Next year, we'll be running a Junior Rangers programme done in partnership with the John Muir Trust. So this will provide an opportunity for local high school students to gain practical experience and skills in a range of activities linking to careers in the countryside sector, such as practical conservation tasks, biological surveys, and bushcraft sessions, to completing first aid courses and learning navigational skills. There's also the Digital Journey of Landscape Restoration project, which has been mentioned a couple of times. So for this, we'll be using creative digital media to capture the magic of our reserve as it regenerates, and share our journey of landscape restoration under community ownership with local and global audiences. It's so important to us to share this with others and help inspire action and hope across the country and internationally. We'll also be developing community land produce projects, such as an orchard, allotment garden and tree nursery. So collecting from local seed stock to help towards the creation of new woodland habitats on the reserve. And there'll also be opportunities for the development of rural skills and crafts, such as beekeeping, bushcrafts, and using coppice wood to create products. Thank you. I'll hand back over to Jenny.
So we're sort of heading towards the end of the presentation, but we couldn't finish today without talking about our second buyout campaign. So if Margaret touched upon this at the beginning, and I'm sure a lot of people who are here tonight have already heard plenty from us already about this, but just as a really quick summary before we finish and go on to our Q&A, we have just launched our second buyout campaign to raise £2.2 million by May 2022 to bring the remaining 5,300 acres of the Tarras Valley Nature Reserve and Langham Moor into community ownership. So the landscape, the land that we're trying to buy is a absolutely stunning upland landscape. It contains 2 river valleys, including the source of the River Tarras, and extensive peatlands. So this land offers absolutely huge potentials, huge opportunities for ecological restoration, community regeneration, and everything that we've been talking about tonight. So the land is held off the open market for the community at a fixed price until May 2022 to enable us to raise these additional funds, as we were unable to go ahead with the purchase of this section of the estate in our first buyout due to funder deadlines. So after May, the land will go on the open market. Likely the price will go up, and it will be beyond the reach of the community to purchase it after that point. So we would have no control over its future and what happens to it. And, you know, as a landscape scale restoration project, securing this final section is absolutely vital to what we're trying to do under community ownership. So we've had literally the most incredible response so far, with hundreds of people donating, and it has just been, we've been blown away the last month just by the response that we've had since we launched this. And just thank you to everybody, because it really has been just like amazing. And you know, we do have a long way to go, but we're working really hard to make sure we give this the best possible shot, to make sure that we can, you know, give this the best chance to get this land safeguarded as part of the Tarras Valley Nature Reserve. So in terms of how you can help us, please share the message far and wide with as many people as you can. And if you haven't already, please donate to our crowdfunder. And thanks again for anybody who's already donated. You really are helping us to make history as one of the South of Scotland's biggest community land buyouts. So your help and support is incredibly appreciated. So just on to the last slide for me, Kat. So I think, just to sum up, because I think it is about people, and what we've been saying is people are, you know, the centre of what we're trying to do. And the buyout story, I think for all of us, and you know, we've the thread of the story of hope has been through everything we've talked about tonight. And it was the story of the impossible dream. It was hope against the odds. And, you know, these are just a selection of messages we've had over the last few weeks from our crowdfunder. And it just, they're just, you know, they just really show why we're here, why we're doing this, I think. And, you know, it's the power of community action and the power of people coming together to achieve something amazing as a collective. And it's not just something for us now, but it's that legacy for our children, and creating a much brighter future. And especially when the news at the moment is so dark and full of stories of climate breakdown, it really is a true story of hope, and it shows what we can really do when we come together. So that is it from us. Thank you for listening. We hope you've enjoyed the presentation. If you want to go on the last slide, Kat, this is our, if you'd like to keep in touch with what we're doing more regularly, and for updates, please do follow our social media. That's where we post most of our, you know, day-to-day updates. And I'll now hand to Mary for our facilitated Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you to the panel members. Thank you, all of you. That was really good. We're going to do questions now, and Kat is going to select some of the questions that have been put into the chat box. Can everyone hear me okay? We're going to just have to pick some of the questions, and any other questions that we're unable to answer in the time, we'll put onto our website as FAQs. So, Kat, would you like to read the first question? You're on mute, Kat.
Well, someone's asked about the current paths that are on the reserve. So are there currently paths that you can walk on the reserve?
Jenny, would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, I can do. So we've got some, I think, round at Langham and across the reserve, we've got some already quite long established sort of walking trails that people come and do, and you know, they're very important locally. But I think access is definitely something that is a really key part of what we're doing, and part of the management plan. We'll be starting to work together to look at ways of improving access across the reserve. You know, it's definitely something that is an important thing for what we'll be doing to increase that sort of connection with the land, and just and make it easier for people to come and explore it. So yeah, that I would say that's probably sums up where we're at with the path access.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you. And as someone who spent quite a lot of time during lockdown walking, I can see that there are some paths. Margaret, did you want to come in?
I would just like to add that we hope to have guided walks in March next year. You'll be notified on Facebook and the social media sites. These will be guided walks, but it'll take you over the reserve that we own currently and possibly the areas of territory we hope to acquire through the second buyout.
Thank you. Thank you. Kat, would you like to give us another question?
Peatland restoration. What does it involve and how long does it take?
I maybe go to Kevin for that one. Kevin, are you happy to respond to that question?
Sorry, it broke up a little bit for me, Mary, there. What was the question again?
What does
Peatland restoration, what does it involve and how long does it take?
Yeah, so there's a couple of elements to that. So on the part of the land that's already in community ownership, it's a less major requirement to the works. So it's things like ditch blocking, blocking the grips that were put on so moor grips are drains that are installed in moorland for the use for sheep farming and driven grouse shooting in the past. So it's about blocking those to allow the land to re-wet, which benefits both the invertebrate life, the plant life, and then by extension, the wader life on the site. But on the second purchase, there's quite a vast area of extremely degraded peatland that will require much more intervention, and that's one of the really exciting bits about that second part is the sort of scale at which we could do that work. Probably won't be the quickest of jobs to do. It's a really difficult technical bit of work, likely to be difficult and technical. So there's an element of fundraising towards it. There's an element of getting the right expertise and getting the right approach to it. So it can take as long as where it fits into the action plans for the management of the land going forward, and also with the funding that's available to deliver it. So we're really keen to get it done on the first bit of land that we own at the moment, and then going forward, it would be how we fit that into the plans going forward. But as a key objective of community ownership here to do that work.
Thank you, Kevin. Kat, have you got another question?
How was the land being used before and what threat was it under if you hadn't bought it?
Again, I think I'll probably go to Kevin for that.
Yeah, no problem. So there's some really interesting stuff. So Langham was a very well-known driven grouse moor for a long time. And that stopped in the 90s, and since then there's been two major scientific studies done on the land: the joint raptor study in the 90s, and then from around about 2008 to 2018 the Langham Moor demonstration project, which was trying to re-establish a driven grouse moor on the land, and also protect the birds of prey that are on the land. And that was a major partnership project with Buccleuch Estates, with Natural England, with Scottish Natural Heritage, Game and Wildlife Conservancy, and the RSPB, all putting financial assistance into this, with a lot of data coming out, a lot of really useful data for the community going forward as well. But inevitably, for a number of different reasons and for different things, that it wasn't possible to re-establish a driven grouse moor on the land at the levels that were required to make it economically sustainable. And it's likely that that's at the end of that project, and that being the outcome is that why the land was then made available on the market. In terms of the threats it was under, well, in the south of Scotland, there are a number of changes in land use happening, and a lot of those are to do with a huge increase in commercial forestry, as well as wind farms, and that has been seen around Langham. A lot of the land around Langham is now planned for commercial forestry, and there was a real desire within the community that this didn't happen to this bit of land. So like I said, we've got a small bit of existing commercial forestry that's already there as part of this, but there isn't any plans to add any additional commercial forestry to this site. So hopefully we've at least protected this area from that.
Thank you, Kevin. Kat, would you like to give us another one?
Yeah, so these two are kind of linked, so I'll give you two questions at the same time. So well, first of all, someone's asked, will the grouse shooting continue? And linked to that, has there been any hen harrier persecution? And also, what is the policy on hunting, shooting or trail hunting on the land?
Okay, I think I'll come to Jenny to answer that.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll start with, there's no plans for any driven grouse shooting on the land. Now it's in community ownership. What was the second bit, Kat?
Sorry,
there's a few bits to that.
Said too many. Yeah, so there, any linked to that, and has there been any hen harrier persecution?
So we are, in terms of the hen harrier nests that we have on the reserve, we have literally the most amazing volunteer effort and partnership effort with the RSPB to safeguard the nests that we have on the reserve. So every year we have so many volunteers checking them, making sure that, you know, they're okay and they get the best possible safe passage off our reserve. There is an issue when they leave, and we have had the last 2 years we've had harriers disappear. So yeah, there is an issue more widely. We do the best we can for them when they're on the reserve, but there is a sort of wider issue in terms of what happens to them after they leave our reserve. But we do try our best to give them that protection while they're on Tarras Valley Nature Reserve, and we'll continue to do so. And what was the last?
What is the policy on fishing, shooting, or trail hunting on the land?
So fishing, we don't actually have a policy yet on that one, would be the honest answer. There's no trail hunting, and there's no shooting. We haven't renewed the shooting licenses on the land, and don't plan to do so.
Thank you, Jenny. Kat, have you got another question?
Yeah. In the hopefully unlikely event that you don't raise all the money required, can you buy part of the land, or does it have to be whole?
Can I come to Angela for that question?
You can do. Yeah, I mean, Jenny's been very much for one the sort of leading on the fundraising, but we have been sort of trying to operate it as a team. That particular point hasn't come up. So it's not one that we've discussed, and it's not one that we've discussed with Buccleuch Estates, but we do have a meeting with them in February where we'll be updating them on the plans and how the fundraising is going. Hopefully we will know by then, we will get a better feel of how the fundraising is going to see whether or not we've got through to the stage 2 of Scottish Land Fund. If the opportunity comes up, I'm sure we will consider it, but it isn't something we've discussed at this point in time.
Thank you, Angela. Okay, Kat, another question?
Someone's asked about the mechanics of the fundraising, so crowdfunding, approaching major donors, background admin, etc. And someone else has asked about funding from the other big nature organisations such as the RSPB and Woodland Trust. So I don't know if they can kind of go together.
Jenny, could I come to you for that?
Yeah, that's fine. Mechanics of the fundraising. So I suppose I can cover just the kind of approach. This may not answer the question, but I'll try and cover the approach that we're taking at the moment. So what we're trying to do is sort of a blended approach to our fundraising. So we're applying to major grant funders. So we've got an application in at the moment with the Scottish Land Fund. We're also approaching other major donors where they will where land purchase is part of the things that they fund. So that's sort of one sort of element of what we're doing. We've obviously got the crowdfunder, which we talked about, most amazing response on that, and we're hoping that we'll be able to raise a proportion of the funds through that. And then we're also we're looking at sort of other private donations as well, and then sort of the other bit to that is then where we could potentially, and it's not something it will be the ideal, but where we could sort of have like a longer term loan or something like that. So we're also looking at that kind of backup if the other 3 options don't bring the funds through, that we also have a sort of backup, which would be a sort of a loan or something of that to that effect. So that would be the option we don't really want to go with, but again, it's something that we would feel would be worth it to secure the land.
Also, just associated with that, if I can just add in, Mary,
go for it.
We could look at using some of our own funds as well,
Yes.
for example, generated through the felling that will be undertaken of a small piece of commercial woodland we've got. Again, as Jenny said, it's not something we want to do, but if it comes to it, we feel that the purchase of the second piece of land is really important. So it's something that we would consider investing some of our own income if it helps secure it.
Thank you, thank you. And I've just seen a chat, something in the chat box there from Alan Cranston, I think, saying that the money is going up in the GoFundMe thing as we are on this part of this discussion.
Thank you.
So thank you to everyone who's helping with that. Kat, is there another question? I think we may have time for 2 more before we wrap up.
Do you have deer on the estate, and is overgrazing a potential hindrance to natural woodland regeneration?
Who wants to take this one? Jenny or
I can
Kevin?
answer it,
Yeah, Jenny.
and then others can feel free to pitch in, but I think I can answer this one. So yes, we do have deer. So I think it would probably be to be transparent. There will, at some point in the future, to help encourage natural regeneration and that habitat restoration, there probably will need to be some level of management of wildlife such as deer. But at the moment, there are no plans, because we are really keen that we make sure whatever we do is evidence-led, and we have the right survey and the right data to be able to inform anything we do and make those decisions, make the right decisions as a collective. But obviously, one of our biggest aims is about climate action, and trees and restored peatlands. When they're overgrazed, they're not performing at the optimum to be able to trap all that carbon and provide all that habitat value. So it's about sort of getting that ecosystem balance, with any decisions that we make. So going forward, but no plans at the moment, but it is something that we will undoubtedly have to approach at some point in the future.
Thank you, Jenny. And just to say, it's roe deer that we have here. We don't have red deer here. I'm right in saying that, Emma? Yes, okay. I think we'll take a last question before we wrap up, Kat.
Is there any scope for community-led housing?
Angela, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, in the original business plan that was drawn up, there was highlighted that there might be scope for further housing. As we've already stated, we do own 4 properties on the land, but ideas such as whether or not we could look at plots for self-build or plots for us to develop further housing. I think it's fair to say that, compared to parts of the Highlands and some other remote parts, but the housing need is very different in this area. And one of the things that we are hopefully going to be looking at, if we can secure the funding, is to undertake a sort of housing needs and demand survey, so that we can actually understand that a little bit more, and whether or not it's practical to use some parts of our land to support those needs.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you to the panelists, and thank you to everyone who has joined us this evening for all their questions. And really, it's been very good, and I think hopefully it's been very informative for you that have joined us this evening. And thank you to everybody who's helped us to get where we are today. And we really, look forward to continue to be able to share this journey with you, and hopefully that we'll soon be able to announce that we have managed to buy the northern part of the land, the 5,300 acres that we're aiming to buy in the future. Thank you very much, and really we are very excited, I think, to see the future unfold. It's been quite an amazing journey so far, and I really feel, happy and humbled in a way that I've been part of this. So thank you, Kat, Margaret, Angela. I'm reading across the top of my screen. Jenny and Kevin. Thank you to everybody. Thank
you.
And thanks everybody. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for coming.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.
Thanks.